All right. Welcome back to the Believe You Are a Good Mom podcast. I'm your host, Emily Wardrop. And today I've got Megan Windhorst with us. Did I say that
Hello,
right?
hello. Yes, you did.
Okay. Megan is an intuition coach. Is that right? Is that what you call
Yeah,
yourself? Uh,
absolutely.
so fun. So I'm very into this right now. So I'm really excited for our conversation. Can you give like a intro to
Yeah,
yourself?
absolutely, for sure. So yeah, my name, like you said, is Megan Windhorst. I am from Omaha, Nebraska. That's currently where I live as well. And like she said, I'm an intuition coach and I also am a nervous system expert. So I really focus on helping women really step into their own power and their own truth and their purpose through intuition and nervous system healing. So I used to be a school counselor for several years. It was like almost 10 years. So I have a master's degree in counseling. I've worked primarily with elementary students, and I also during that time started a business in the middle of it because I have intuitive abilities, so which we all do naturally. It's I just am able to really tap into my own intuition and then also others' intuition. So I started just doing kind of fun intuitive readings with oracle cards for people, and that's how my business started. And from there, I just really started to realize I wanted to help teach people how to do this themselves and get the answers themselves and trust themselves so that they can start to just empower themselves and make better decisions for themselves and live their life in a more powerful way. So that is how I started getting into coaching. And I left the school system just about a year ago, and now I'm full time in my business and I have several coaching programs. And I always forget I'm also a breathwork facilitator as well. So that slides in really well with all of it. And I'm a energy healer, so I'm a certified Reiki Master as well. So very into energy and the energetics around why we do things. And I'm just fascinated by the brain in itself. And so it all kind of meshes all really well together. And so here I am just doing my purpose full time now and loving life.
That is so awesome. Oh, I
Yeah.
love it so much. So many things. So one of my big, huge things is that I really want to empower my moms to be their own parenting expert. Because as
Mm-hmm.
soon as we become a mom, we're like, what am I supposed to do with this thing?
Yeah.
And like, I love him so much, but I'm going crazy and I don't know what all these feelings are and all the things. Right. And so we
Yeah.
look to outside sources, all the blogs, all the books, all
Yeah.
the, well, now it's Instagram influencers and
Yeah.
things like that. Right. To try to
Mm-hmm.
tell us what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And all that does is like confuse us even more, give us really helpful thoughts like you're doing it wrong
Yeah.
and you feel really
Yeah.
bad. And that's
Yeah.
not useful at all when dealing with hormones and new baby
Yeah.
dramas and stuff. It's like
Yeah.
if we can tap into our own intuition and know that we are the parenting expert for this child, then
Yeah.
that is like the secret sauce. So I'm excited for you to teach us
Absolutely.
all about how to actually do that.
Yeah, for sure. And, I always kind of go back to talking about how everyone is we're just kind of conditioned from ourselves being a child, conditioned by society to trust everyone outside of ourselves in general, right? So as we grow up, we're taught to trust the adults in our life, the ones that are closest to us and our teachers, and also people that have like high degrees, like doctors and lawyers, right? People
Mhm.
that are quote unquote smarter than us, right? And so we're just taught that way to not believe in ourselves and that maybe we're not smart enough to make our own decisions when really our intuition is our own innate intelligence. And we are our intuition, we actually know more than, in a way, more than what even people with high degrees would know. We know what's
Mhm.
best for us
Yeah.
intuitively. And so and I kind of always have to say too that some people don't really even know what intuition is. So I
Oh yeah.
always
Let's
pull
start
out
back
the
at the
the
beginning, right?
Google, yeah, the Google definition. You can literally Google this, but it's actually the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. So it's our own innate intelligence. It's a lot of times people call it our gut feeling or the little voice within, our inner knowing. So that's what it is. And most of us are numb from it or it's clouded because we're in this hustle mode most of our life. We're taught to be in this go 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 mode, right? And that actually puts us in fight, flight, or freeze automatically, and that's survival mode. And a lot of us don't even realize that we're in that because we've been in that our whole lives.
Mhm.
And so what we have to do is start to kind of decondition ourselves and bring calm energy and just calm into our nervous system to get us into the parasympathetic nervous response system, which is the calm, right? So
Mhm.
then we can finally have access to our own inner knowing and we'll start to receive information, and some people even say it's information from source or God or universe or whatever you believe in. It's all connected. So it's I have so many steps that I'll kind of explain, but I just kind of wanted to bring it back to that first to kind of explain again, like how we're just conditioned to not trust ourselves. And so just knowing that it's not your fault, right? It's
Mhm.
just how we've been brought up and how society has conditioned us. So just know that first of all, that it's not our fault and that we
Yeah.
can take back control of it.
Yeah, I like to use the little brain hack that, of course. Like, yes, I can meet with a shrink and figure out why my brain is
Mhm.
thinking the way it's thinking, or I can just kind of skip all that and be like, of course I think that. Of course I feel that. I have good reason, to just kind of drop the shame about it, drop the judgment
Yeah.
about it, and just be like, yes, this is how I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a good reason for that. And now what? And
Yeah.
so I really like how you talk about believing in yourself. I just did a whole episode on our sacred bodies. Like, I feel like our body is the guidebook that God gave us to
Mhm.
deal with this earth life.
Yeah.
So it's like when we really like we're looking for outside sources, right? To read books
Mhm.
like how am I supposed to, and then their body, right? Like another child, another human
Mhm.
being like that we're
Mhm.
supposed to be raising. It's like, where's the guidebook for this?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
all because I have a reproductive system, all of a sudden I can like
Right.
reproduce, but like, where's my instruction manual? And like our bodies can be that instruction manual for us. So I'm excited for you to teach us
Exactly.
how
Yeah,
the calm
absolutely.
thing. Let me touch on that
Mhm.
real quick and then we can dig in.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially with my T1D moms. So we have these kids with type 1 diabetes, which means
Mhm.
that we have to watch their blood sugar levels like all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now there's amazing technology that's attached to that. So there's like beeps going off all the time. And
Mm.
every time a monitor beeps, your nervous system like
Oh,
goes
wow,
into
yeah.
panic mode, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh no, what's that beep mean again? Oh no, it's too high,
Yeah.
too low. What am I supposed to do? Blah. Especially at the beginning with a new diagnosis and you're just getting used to it and things. Like we are constantly in fight or flight,
Yeah.
especially if the onset of the diabetes was a really traumatic experience, like
Mm.
receiving the
Mhm.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so our brains are conditioned to be in panic mode.
Yeah.
And there's a thing called a glucagon shot that you use just for like pure emergencies. Like I've never had to
Mhm.
even think about using it.
Mhm.
And so I like to tell my T1D moms that panic is as useful as the glucagon shot. Like it is
Mhm.
useful and it's necessary, but only in like very rare occurrences.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
we have to remind ourselves when those beeps go off to calm ourselves
Mm.
because of course, right? Of course
Yeah.
we're feeling this way. Of course we're thinking this, but we have to calm our own nervous system first in order to have the brain power to take care of the situation.
Yeah.
So I just really love everything you're going to teach us, but
Oh, wow.
I'll be quiet
Yeah.
now and let you.
No, yeah, no, that's really interesting and very good to know as well that, it's similar to as you're talking, it reminds me of it's very similar to what happens in the body when we experience trauma, right?
Mhm.
And so it's me being a school counselor for several years, I was in several different schools that were more high trauma, right? Kind of more poverty stricken areas. So I was very used to being around children and families that had severe trauma. And with that, of course, in a developing brain of a child, that causes a lot of behaviors, right?
Mhm.
And so what I really learned was a lot of calming not just your child down, but calming yourself down because we have the same bodies, right? It's just we're
Mhm.
more developed, is really connecting to the body and doing somatic type of healing.
Yeah.
So especially when it comes to children, we can't just tell them to calm down. We can't
Yeah.
just tell them to okay, let's sit quietly and just meditate. They don't have that developed brain yet to be able to just automatically do that. And even though there's been a lot, I've had a ton of mindfulness training, and I used to do that as a school counselor. But over time, I really realized and learned that, okay, a child they need to regulate with a regulated adult,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's called mirror neurons. The child has to be able to co-regulate with a person that is already regulated themselves. And so they will start to calm down when you're calm, right? And so that's why it always goes back to ourself, and it goes back to taking care of ourselves first and foremost. The same, that saying where we can't pour from an empty cup type of
Yeah.
thing. It's really pouring into ourselves first, taking care of ourselves first, really working on our regulation and our calming skills, and that's going to automatically benefit the child, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't even have to really teach them something. It's
Exactly.
just you working on you, and that's going to benefit them, right? And so I'll also give tips and tricks of what the child can do as well, but I kind of want to go back to the importance of just trusting yourself, and like going back to what we were talking about with we're taught to trust everyone outside of ourselves. And especially with being a parent, and I'm not a parent yet. I want to be someday, but I'm not yet. But again, like I said, I've worked with thousands of children
Mhm.
and different ages and parents, and I've seen a lot of different things. And I also actually used to work in social work as well. So worked with families in different capacities. What I've really seen and learned through my time doing all of those things is it's really going back to, again, like helping yourself understand what's happening in your body and really calming that lizard brain. And that's kind of what it's called, is the lizard brain is the reptilian brain. And if you think of an animal, they're animalistic, right? And that's what happens when we're in fight, flight, or freeze. When we're in survival mode, we're operating from the limbic system, which is the emotional part of our brain, which is all purely animalistic. And so we're not connecting to our prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking brain, thinking part. So we don't have the higher level functioning available right in that moment when we're in survival mode. And so we have to do something with the body to get us to get calm, to turn off that alarm that's happening. So our amygdala is what's firing when we're in this panic state, right? So we have to calm that down, get that alarm to calm down. And we do that through body work, and that's called that somatic work. And when we do that, we're connecting with our subconscious, and our subconscious is connected to the body. So it's all like physical body stuff. And when I'm saying that, I'm saying things like breath work, literally shaking your body, moving your body around. If you need to scream, right? Doing something that activates your voice. So screaming, yelling, even humming or singing, that's going to activate the vagus nerve, which our vagus nerve is in charge of the parasympathetic nervous response system. It's the longest nerve in our body, and it connects our brain and our heart and our gut all together, which again, that's going to help you connect to your intuition. So all of this is like imperative to start doing consistently, to kind of teach the body that you're safe, because that's what we're doing when we're doing any sort of somatic healing, is we're bringing safety into the body. Otherwise, if we're not doing that, we're disconnected from our body. And it's kind of like our mind is battling our body, and our brain's job is to keep us safe. And so our brain doesn't know the difference. Even if we're in a safe situation, if we are in front of change, or if some sort of change happens, even if I'm talking even like you're wanting to change your life in a positive way, your brain thinks that's a threat because
Yeah.
it's different. And our brain is used to familiarity, and that is safe. Even if familiar is chaos,
Yeah.
that's our brain is still wanting to continue with the chaos because it's familiar to the brain, which equals safe to the brain. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of messed up, and it doesn't make sense to us logically, but that's actually what's happening. And so that's also why people, they'll change a behavior or a habit, or they want to like join a program or something and start these new skills, and they quit within 30 days or so. It's because they're going to go back to their habits, even if
Mhm.
it's not healthy, because that's what's safe to the brain. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of
Comfort
just,
zone. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's kind of just getting over that hump which is why it's really helpful to be, working with somebody consistently over time to kind of keep you accountable, but also have that support that you need to get through it, because it can be emotional no matter what kind of changes you're implementing. And over time, then your brain kind of gives over to that fighting and it brings in safety to the nervous system. And then you have a new normal, right? And
Mhm.
so that's kind of the key with change when it comes to that. And so when we're doing somatic work, that's why consistency is the biggest piece. So if you start a practice like breath work, it's very important to do it consistently, because yes, one session can be really life changing and amazing, but your body's going to naturally go back to its normal habits, and you're going to go slip back into the fight, flight, or freeze response to everything, right? And then you don't feel like you have control over your life, and then you're more in fear mode. And when we're in like severe fear mode, we have a hard time trusting ourselves, and that's where we look outside of ourselves for answers, and then it's just disempowering, right? So that's kind of where I always start with getting back to the basics of bringing safety into our body, and then we can help our kids do the same. And even like when kids witness you doing those kind of changes and working on yourself like that, they want to imitate that, right? That's how they learn, is they watch you and they imitate the behavior. So
Yeah.
it's not what you say, it's what you do, right? And
Yeah.
they're more animalistic, think of their brain again. So they're going to imitate what you're doing, and so they'll want to naturally do what you're doing or feel the way you're feeling, because again, the mirror neurons. So that's kind of like some basics, and that's kind of a lot, but it's
Mhm.
some basics of how to kind of get back to connecting to your true self and your intuition, but also just calming the alarm in your brain and your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I felt very validated recently when I heard that every time you're interrupted, cortisol is released. I'm like,
Hmm.
well, that's why I'm so irritated all day long, because I can't
Yeah.
do one single thing. Like, I can't follow one thought without 45 interruptions. Mom, this, mom, that.
Yeah.
And so that is literally like triggering my nervous system every time I'm interrupted. It's not
Hmm.
because I'm like such an impatient jerk face that like can't handle like
Yeah.
my husband having something to say. I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm trying to listen and he's like interrupting, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that I don't care about him or what he has to say, it's that my brain is focused on something else right now. And that interruption literally releases cortisol in your body and you go into fight or
Yeah.
flight.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, good. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so the more I learn about this kind of thing, it's just so very, um, it's just, it takes like, it takes the labels off. Like I
Yeah.
said, like I'm not just impatient, like we
Right.
like to just label ourselves like, oh, I'm so impatient. Or we like to congratulate other moms. Oh, you're such a patient mom. Oh, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. I'm like, yeah, I can keep it together for like a play date. So I look
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
patient. But as
Yeah.
soon as
Right.
you leave, you know it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, we know we're all impatient, okay? It's because
Mhm.
our nervous systems are
Mhm.
being hijacked. So
Yeah.
it's just like I said, validating and good to understand so that we don't have to beat ourselves up about just natural bodily functions.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, something that will help kind of expand your nervous system so that you can handle triggers more
Mhm.
when we're doing like consistent nervous system work, like, and I always use breath work as an example because that's honestly the easiest one to do consistently. But you can also do things like cold exposure, like cold
Mhm.
showers. So I do that about 6 minutes every morning. That's kind of like my small daily promise to myself, which builds trust and confidence, just keeping that promise. But also just cold exposure. There's a lot of research around that of how that helps lower cortisol and how it helps to get you out of fight, flight, or freeze. It brings safety into the body. So things like that, if you're doing that consistently, that's going to actually expand your nervous system, which helps you to be able to handle things easier. It helps you to have more capacity to handle a trigger, basically.
Yeah.
And some things you might not be as triggered by anymore. So that just kind of gives this like more consistent calm energy in your system. So those are a couple of ways to just kind of bring that consistency to expand the capacity of the nervous system. Um, Also, I was going to say too that when it comes to connecting to your intuition and also like helping expand your nervous system as well, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to do that. Because I don't think I've really touched on that yet, but really why you would want to kind of develop your intuition is because you will really gain a lot more self-trust. You will really gain more confidence, and you'll just be more in tune and understanding of not only like decisions to make and being more confident with yourself, but also you'll be more in tune with your purpose. Your intuition is what leads you to your purpose, and it helps you to feel more purposeful and feel more in your truth. It basically just helps you feel more like yourself. So you're your true self, right? Because as children, and this is good to know if you're a parent too, as children, we are kind of conditioned to become something we're not.
Mhm.
Society kind of conditions us to, and it's not parents' fault, it's society, right? We're
Yeah.
conditioned to people please, and we're conditioned to do what others say they think is best for us. And so therefore, we kind of develop personalities that are not our true self. And then as we become adults, we have to kind of undo that and decondition ourselves and be like, wait, I actually don't believe this, or I actually don't want this for my life. And so we feel disconnected from our true self because of that. And so some things that kind of would help us to, raise our children in ways that they are their true self and they're connected to their true self is to help them kind of have more choices. That was something that I know that I wish I had more growing up and I saw in the school system, right? I was also one of those kids that was like the good girl, and I was perfect at everything because I was people pleasing and trying to get recognition in that way. And I learned that's how I got love and attention, was being the best, at everything. And it wasn't always what I wanted to do, right? And so I especially saw that with the children that were actually not rebellious, the ones that were more quiet kids, right? The ones that were just saying yes to everything. I noticed that they sometimes were the ones that had more of the internal issues, and so I realized and learned that the more that we gave them choices, of course, choices that were safe for them and what, we agreed to too, but giving them choices helps them feel like they can have some sort of control, right?
Mhm.
And they have choice over what they do with their life. And that really helps. And then also asking them questions about what they think and feel about things. Asking, it's basically you're connecting to their internal world. Because a lot of kids they're just kind of automatically taught that they're not allowed to express themselves, or that their feelings and their thoughts on things don't matter, that they just need to follow directions, right? Or just
Mhm.
do what the adult says to do. And so asking them about their internal world helps them feel validated and helps them feel I am important, or my thoughts do matter, my feelings do matter. And then that kind of helps open up dialogue and actually builds trust between the parent and the child as well, and then the child feels safer to be able to express themselves to their parent or come to them for things. And think of like the teenagers, that didn't get to have that kind of dialogue between their parents. They're the ones that are going, even the really quote unquote good kids that are never in trouble, they're the ones that are still going to hide things from their parents, right? Because
Mhm.
they don't trust that they are able to open up to their parents, or they think they're automatically going to get shamed or in trouble for something. So that's going to really help build that trust, and that's going to help them become, more in tune with their own emotions and understand their emotions. And at the same time, with younger kids too, it's also important to provide that structure and boundaries and routine for them, because that's going to build safety in their nervous system. So kids really thrive off of routine and structure, because it helps them feel safe. They can predict what's happening, right? They if it's something is unpredictable, then there's chaos in their nervous system, and then they're going to act out and they're going to express that through their behavior, right? Again, their brain is more animalistic, so that's why they express themselves behaviorally like that. And at the same time, we can teach them mindfulness practices, but like I said, doing things with their body is going to really help get that emotion out. So if they're feeling heavy, heavy emotions and they're starting to express it and they don't know what's going on with their body, it's helping them immediately move that energy out of their body through doing things like punching a pillow, screaming in a pillow, even like ripping paper, scribbling really hard on paper. So in school, I always had like a calm down space in my classroom and in my office. And I always taught the teachers in the building to have a calm down space in their place as well. And you can have that in your home too, where it's a safe place for them where they know that they can go to do some of these nervous system regulation tools to just get that energy out and then go back to what they're doing, right? And sometimes it's once they're calm, they can talk, they can try to talk about maybe what they're feeling, but again, they might not have access to that. Their brain is still developing, and that's okay too. We don't have to force that, but if I think it's important to give them space enough to be able to know that I can come to my mom or dad to express myself if I need to, or to talk to them about what I'm feeling or experiencing in my body. And that's why it's important too, when the times that they are calm, when they're not like dysregulated, to actually talk to them and teach them about their emotions,
Mhm.
especially when they're younger, like elementary age. The more that they can understand emotions and what emotions look like and what it feels like, and that it's normal and it's okay to feel to feel any emotion, that's going to help them to be more regulated too, but also feel like they're more in control of themselves and not, not get afraid of what they're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to feel heavy emotions all the time. They're human. And so it's helping support them through that, learning what's going on with themselves, but also giving them the proper tools to be able to express themselves and get that energy out. And a lot of times, if it's like a really, really intense emotion like anger, what I noticed that works the best with, especially it was like really angry boys, it was running. It was just going outside, being outside and running and just getting that energy out and screaming, right? Yelling. Um, that really helps calm them down immediately. And then, just allowing them to do what they need to do to be able to get regulated, but also, like I said, it's even more important that you're regulated so
Yeah.
that you're doing that consistent regulation work, because that's going to really help the relationship, but also help the child. And something to think about too that's really interesting, because like I said, I'm really into the energy side of things and what things maybe mean on a deeper level is children are kind of everyone is a mirror to us. That's kind of what I learned, but children are sometimes our greatest mirror to us. And so
Mhm.
what I've always kind of understood or seen is what's going on around you is usually what's going on inside of you. So if the child is having outbursts constantly, you can kind of think to yourself, what's something that's maybe inside on inside of me that's being mirrored back to me, of like there's some sort of tantrum inside of me. What's not being expressed right now? What's, our inner child. We all have an inner child that it's connected to our child self when we were children. What wasn't expressed when I was a child that's still wanting to be expressed now? And sometimes our child will mimic that or mirror that for us. And so it's just really interesting to try to make that connection. And then maybe when you express that or let that out or regulate yourself in some way, the child will automatically regulate easier. And so again, it's going to be a mirror. So
Mhm.
that's always really interesting to know, as well as children will adapt to their environment to survive. So this creates, or I kind of already said this, didn't I? A personality that isn't real to them,
Mhm.
and that their true self they'll have to undo that as adults. So I did talk about that already. That's right. But just remember that it's not our fault, and that we're all here learning, right?
Yeah.
The children included. We're all kind of just children inside, right? We're just
Mhm.
still learning and undoing things, and our child can be our biggest lesson for us and vice versa, right? And that's also why sometimes I feel like, this is kind of another energies perspective that's interesting. If you ever notice, like, sometimes people's children are like complete opposite of what they are, and it's very interesting, and sometimes a parent can get really triggered by that child. Maybe they have like a couple of kids and one kid is complete opposite of who they are, and they're very triggered by that a lot, or that child easily triggers them. And what I've noticed is it's really sometimes it's like the shadow aspect of ourself that we maybe dislike or rejected as children, or we feel shame about. And that child is mirroring that to us to bring that out and to heal it, right?
Yeah.
So they can be our biggest lesson in that way. And vice versa as well. The child can be really triggered by a certain parent, and that parent can be a big teacher in that child's lifetime. And it often has a lot to do with that child's purpose in life, right? So it's a beautiful lesson. And at the
Mhm.
same time, it's good to remember that we are all co-creating together. We're creating our life together. And it's important to know that we have choices, right? And we have the ability to connect to our own inner knowing in a deeper way. And to do that, we have to calm down that nervous system first to be able to have access to the intuition. So
Yeah. So good. So I love, of course, so many things that you just said, but, um, well, first of all, I have an example of what you just explained. So I have a daughter who my story is that she's very clingy, right? And
mhm.
it's like whenever I need space, like she picks up on that vibe and she's like all over me. And I'm like, the
Yeah.
more space I need, the less space I get, right?
Uh-huh.
And so as I've done my inner child healing work,
Yeah.
and so I think of her as little me and like, what would I want my mom to
Mm.
do right now?
Yeah.
And so then I just hug her like I'm hugging my own
Oh,
little
wow. That's
6-year-old self,
beautiful.
and just
Oh
give her
my
the big hug
gosh.
that I wanted. And
Yeah.
so I'm not a very like a huggy person. Like
Mhm.
right. Like you're saying, like
Yeah.
that my developed personality is that I'm like a no touchy, like
Yeah.
not that like just not that way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's probably because I was that way and I got
Mhm.
rejected by the no touchy mom
Yep.
that was just
Yep.
overtouched, overstimulated, had
Yep.
no idea how to regulate herself.
Yeah.
And so when I needed that embrace, I wasn't getting it. And so I made
Mhm.
that mean something bad about my personality and turned it into
Exactly.
a like, I don't hug people.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
now as like I'm embracing my inner child and healing her through my daughter, then my daughter isn't like inheriting those generational
Yeah.
wounds and we're
Yeah.
healing generations. So
Oh
it's
my gosh. Yeah, that's amazing. That's beautiful too. And just think of like, if anyone's listening and they do something even remotely close to that, like think about how during this time and age, like a lot of people are really actually doing the work now to heal generational wounds and
yeah.
trauma. And that's amazing to me. So it's also important to like remember to be proud of yourself for like, even if you think you're doing just little things here and there, that's huge. That's going to help her grow up to not be that way, right? And to accept love more
And
and
to
to
not have to
yeah.
label herself as clingy and that that's a bad thing,
Yeah.
whatever, because that's
Exactly.
what my reptilian brain wants to make it mean and pass on to her.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
get off of me. You're so clingy.
Right, right,
But there's nothing
exactly.
wrong with how she's being. It's just all of my own self-healing work that I need to
Yeah,
do so that I don't continue to pass that on. But
absolutely. Oh
and
my
then the
gosh, yeah.
mirror thing, we tend to
Mhm.
use that as moms as like a negative thing. Again, we use everything to beat ourselves up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so when we see our kid like literally saying something that we say all the time, like when
Mhm.
I'm, 9 months pregnant and I just went downstairs and they're like, "Hey mom, will you go get whatever from upstairs?" I'm like, "I just got down here." Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going back up the stairs to
Yeah.
go get whatever. And then when they say it, I'm like, "You're 4 years old. You just got
Mhm.
down here is not an
Mhm.
excuse. You can go back up there and get it yourself."
Yeah, yeah.
And so when they mirror back to me exactly, like it's not even energy, it's just obvious. Like
Yeah,
I say that
yeah.
all the time. Now they say it, and I'm like, ooh.
Yep.
And so all of those are opportunities for us to choose to not beat ourselves up, but just use it as learning, like you just beautifully
Yeah,
described. So
exactly,
um,
exactly.
so that's kind of my whole platform, right? Is to believe that you are a good mom.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
all of these things that you're describing just kind of validate that, like, of course we're humans. It's really hard. Like everything about the nervous system and emotions and all the things, it's rough. It's
yeah.
hard.
It's
And your
hard to be
kids are
human.
doing it, you're doing
Yeah,
it. Like I always say, I'm like, we expect our kids to do things like we don't know how to do. Like we
yeah,
just want them to behave so that we don't have to feel bad. We want them to
exactly.
regulate because we don't know how to regulate.
Yeah,
And so it really
exactly.
starts with us, like when we get this stuff figured out.
Yep.
So I know Megan has like an amazing program I want you to tell everybody about.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a couple of programs. The one that's coming up soon here is the Intuition Mission. So that's my signature group coaching program on intuition development. And it just really helps you to, again, do all of these things that we were talking about, where we just really deeply learn how to connect to our intuition easier. And we have more access to our own innate intelligence, so that we can be more in our truth and our power. And so this is a 10-week group coaching program, and this will actually be my last time doing it fully live. So it's 10 weeks of coaching. And then you also have an online portal where you have lifetime access to a lot of different trainings, video trainings. And then you have a private Facebook group for support. So it's been amazing. This is my 6th round doing it. And it's actually the program that has helped me to become full-time in my business. And it's been really life-changing for a lot of people. Actually, I've had about 10 people from that program create their own business after going through it. And that's not even the point, but it's like, it's helping people to figure out what they want in their life and actually step into their purpose more. So that, that's what intuition does. You connect to that and you know more of what you want in your life. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks here. If you are listening to this podcast, you get $100 off for it. So just reach out to me and let me know that you listen to this podcast and that you'll get that. I also have a nervous system healing program too. This is more new, and this is going to be an actual fun opportunity to take both programs at the same time for a major discount. And I don't believe I'll be doing this again, doing both of these programs fully live at the same time. But this one starts in about 3 to 4 weeks, and it's called The Key. So this is a 12-week nervous system regulation program where we do a lot of somatic healing in it. You also get access to my breathwork membership if you're in this program too. So I also have a breathwork membership too. So that is a monthly membership where you get to do breath work with me virtually twice a month. And you have a private Facebook group where you have support and also all of the recordings if you can't ever make it live. So those are the kind of things that I've got going on right now, as well as currently I am doing intuitive readings again. I usually have my calendar closed for that as I mostly do coaching now, but it is open right now. I'm not sure how long I'm going to keep it open for, but I have 50% off of 30-minute readings where I use oracle cards and I tap into your intuition and kind of just be able to give you intuitive messages of what's going on with your life. So, and
Oh,
any questions
cool.
that you want answered. Yeah.
So fun. Lots of options. And all
Yeah.
of that's on your website or?
Yeah, so this is actually on my it's kind of a link tree site. The best
Mhm.
way to find it is through my social media. You can also email me at coachmegannicole@gmail.com, and there's no H's in Megan Nicole.
Okay.
Yeah.
No H's in anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Except your last name has an H. But
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
okay. Well, we'll have all the links in the show notes. So,
Perfect.
any last wisdom you want to share while we've
Oh gosh. Yeah, I guess I do want to touch really quick on if you are wanting to start connecting to your intuition more, it's really starting to, like, carve out alone time for yourself. So I
Yes.
wanna mention that if we're always constantly on the go and hustle mode and busy, we're not gonna be connected to it very well. So the first thing that I would say is just to start having more alone time, having more downtime,
Mhm.
and that's the quiet time is where you're gonna start to listen and hear the intuition. So starting with that, just decluttering your environment, and that's gonna help declutter your mind more, and just helping yourself to just really slow down and connect with nature, right? And just get more in tune with your body. That's going to really help. So, just a little
Yeah, those
tip
are
right
good.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it's always like, oh wow, that sounds amazing and huge. And wow, what? Where do I
Yeah.
start? So
Yeah.
those are really good.
Yep.
Where do I
Start
start
there.
tips?
Yeah.
And I always say the very first place to start is just breathing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
take the pause, right? Whenever you
Yep.
get triggered to just all you have to
Exactly.
remember is to breathe. Like
Yep.
once your lid is flipped, like you can't remember any of this. So
Exactly.
if you can just
Exactly.
remember to take a breath,
Deep breath. Yeah.
love is one breath away, right? So
Yeah. Love that.
awesome, Megan. This has been so much fun.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me. This was amazing.
And I will I was gonna do some sort of outro because these video, but be sure to go watch the video podcast on Spotify is where you can see the video. And then if I remember to put this on YouTube, it'll be on my YouTube channel too.
Perfect.
So and see Megan's beautiful smiling face. So we'll talk to everybody next time. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you.